Money is a new form of slavery, and distinguishable from the old simply by the fact that it is impersonal. There is no human relation between master and slave. Leo Tolstoy. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. There is something hypnotic about money. Not in what it is, but in what it promises. It presents itself not as paper, not as metal, but as freedom, power, dignity, security, love. And slowly, quietly, it wraps itself around the human mind like a golden thread, shining so bright, it blinds. From childhood, the script is clear. Success is measured, worth is counted, happiness is a number. More is better. Bigger means stronger. The one who owns more wins. But no one ever explains what exactly he wins. Money begins as a tool, but doesn't stay that way for long. It becomes an identity, a direction, a source of self-worth. It's no longer what you have, it's who you are. And once that line is crossed, freedom becomes an illusion. Because when you are what you own, you are never enough. The game is simple and endless. Get more, spend more, show more, then repeat. No matter how much you hold in your hands, desire stays 2 steps ahead, because the craving is not in the object, it's in the lack. And the lack doesn't live in the wallet, it lives in the self. Money doesn't just buy things, it buys attention, approval, applause, a sense of safety. But it also buys silence, emptiness, isolation. The higher the climb, the thinner the air. People admire the view from the top, not realizing how cold it is there. Everything becomes performance. A car isn't transportation, it's a message. A watch isn't for time, it's for power. Even generosity becomes a transaction. Nothing is just what it is. Everything is a symbol, and every symbol has a price. But the real trap is not in what money gives. It's in what it takes. Time, presence, calm, connection, stillness. Slowly, almost invisibly, it demands all of them in exchange for status, for luxury, for the next level. And even when the reward is reached, it's never enough. The mind conditioned by craving cannot rest. It was never taught how to stop wanting. Freedom is replaced by ambition. Inner peace is replaced by productivity. Rest becomes laziness. Simplicity becomes failure. Silence becomes awkward. The world spins faster and faster, and no one remembers where it was going in the first place. At some point, what once felt like progress starts to feel like pressure. Not because money is evil, but because the hunger it feeds is endless. The appetite it awakens cannot be satisfied. You reach for more, not because you need it, but because you fear what will happen if you don't. Fear of being less, of being forgotten, of being unimportant. But nothing material can solve what is spiritual. No object can replace presence. No number can erase the wound of feeling not enough. No luxury can substitute for stillness, depth, or truth. These things are not bought. They are remembered. Yet we forget, again and again. We forget because the world around us constantly reminds us to chase. Billboards scream desire, screens flash status, people mirror ambition. Everything around whispers, you'll be free when you have more. But more is a mirage, a promise that moves further away the closer you get. And while you run toward it, life passes by. Real freedom doesn't live in accumulation. It lives in letting go. Letting go of the need to prove, to impress, to dominate. Letting go of the belief that what's outside can fill what's inside. You can have wealth and still be poor. Poor in presence, in clarity, in peace. You can have nothing and feel full, because fullness is not about having, it's about being. The chain shines bright. It looks beautiful. but it's still a chain, even when it's made of gold. The material world was designed to capture your attention. It knows your weaknesses better than you do. It doesn't shout. It seduces. Not with violence, but with comfort. Not with truth, but with shine. It's not a prison with walls. It's a dream with no waking up. And it begins early. You're not born wanting luxury. You're taught to want it. You're shown images, rewarded for wanting more, praised for consuming. The child learns quickly. Value is not in who you are, but in what you can show. Identity becomes decoration. Worth becomes visible. This hypnosis is deep. It doesn't live in words. It lives in the background, in the constant comparison, in the silent measurement of who's ahead. It tells you that joy is something to achieve, not something to feel. That love must be earned and worth must be proved. It takes your natural state, presence, curiosity, peace, and replaces it with goals, timelines, ambitions. And when you reach one, it quietly raises the bar. One more purchase, one more win, one more level, always one more. People don't realize they're being programmed. They call it life, progress, success. But they're repeating a script that was handed to them. A script designed to keep them running, never arriving. Always chasing something that seems so close, yet never lands. This isn't about money being good or bad. It's about how easily the mind attaches to it, how easily the heart forgets itself in the glow of gold, how quickly silence is replaced with noise, and how deeply noise becomes normal. The hypnosis works because it feels so real, because everyone around is under the same spell. You look around and see people smiling in expensive clothes, laughing in luxury, dancing in excess, and you think, this must be freedom. But what you don't see are the quiet moments behind the curtain, the loneliness in rooms full of applause, the anxiety behind every polished post, the numbness that no amount of shine can cover. You begin to feel that if you stop running, you'll fall behind. That slowing down is dangerous. That simplicity is weakness. So you keep going, but your body knows. Your soul remembers. And at night, when the lights are off and no one's watching, the ache rises. This ache isn't sadness. It's the memory of who you were before the hypnosis, before the world told you who to be, before success became a costume, before value had a price tag. Freedom doesn't scream. It whispers. It calls you in the quiet, in the stillness, in the spaces without goals. But those spaces are the ones we avoid, because they confront the truth. You are not what you have. And if that's true, then who are you? The material world doesn't want you to ask that question, because if you do, the game ends. Wanting isn't a flaw. It's part of being alive. But in a world built on selling dreams, wanting becomes the fuel for a machine that never stops. The system depends on your hunger, not just for food or shelter, but for recognition, status, validation, more. And the more you want, the more you chase. The more you chase, the more trapped you become. This isn't freedom. It's addiction in a suit and tie. It's dependence dressed as ambition. The moment you get what you thought you needed, the feeling fades. Satisfaction never lasts. The thrill dissolves. The joy evaporates. And the silence returns, louder than before. So the mind does what it was trained to do: search for the next fix, a new goal, a higher number, a better lifestyle, a stronger title. It feels like movement, like growth, like success. But it's a loop, a perfect loop. Because each achievement feeds the same emptiness it promised to heal. This is the trap, not in failing to get what you want, but in believing that getting it will set you free. In thinking that fulfillment lives just beyond the next achievement. It doesn't. That's the lie. A well-designed lie. One that fuels industries, cultures, identities. Wanting more becomes a way of life, not because you lack, but because you forgot how to feel enough, forgotten how to rest, how to breathe without a reason, how to exist without proving. Even spirituality becomes a commodity. Meditation apps, luxury retreats, high-performance mindfulness. Everything is monetized. Even peace becomes something to buy, to schedule, to perform. But the truth is sharper than that. You don't need more to be free. You need less. Less noise, less chasing, less pretending. You need to remember what you are without all the layers, without all the weight. The problem isn't in ambition. It's in blindness. Blindness to the present. Blindness to what you've already become, to the ground beneath you, to the breath that's always been enough. Freedom doesn't arrive when you've conquered the world. It arrives when the world no longer conquers you from within, when your peace isn't dependent on results, when your self-worth isn't attached to symbols, when your heart beats quietly and you listen. But the trap is clever. It rewards you for staying asleep, for following the pattern. It hands you prizes, applause, admiration. It makes the race feel meaningful, but you can feel it. That quiet tug in your chest. The one that knows this isn't it. That knows you weren't made for a finish line that keeps moving. There is no ending to wanting. There is no final purchase. No ultimate trophy. There's only deeper thirst. Because the hunger isn't outside. It's the part of you that was never taught how to be still. That's why money never makes you free, because it doesn't stop the wanting. It amplifies it. It adds options, layers, illusions, but never stillness, never presence. And until you face the root of your craving, not just what you want, but why you want, the trap holds you. Not with chains, but with dreams. The world has redefined value. What once came from depth, character, soul, now comes from price tags, labels, and screens. You're not asked who you are. You're asked what you do, what you own, what you wear, where you've been, what you've achieved. And so you adapt. You adjust your image. You speak in numbers. You wear your status like armor. Because if value is external, then protection must be too. But here's the truth. Value cannot be measured. It can only be felt. And anything that depends on measurement is already a shadow of something deeper. Money created a new religion, not with gods but with icons, not with faith, but with fantasy. It taught people to worship symbols, gold, fame, influence. It promised belonging in exchange for appearance, and slowly, people gave up their inner world for an outer shell. The illusion is perfect because it's everywhere. The car that speaks success, the watch that signals authority, the phone that whispers power, the home that screams achievement, all of it, signs, not truth, representations, not reality. People begin to chase value by collecting symbols of it, but value that depends on display is already broken. Because the moment you stop showing it, you fear it's gone. This creates a constant anxiety, a low hum beneath daily life, the fear of slipping, of losing status, of becoming invisible. Because when your worth is borrowed from things, it can be taken. And what can be taken is never freedom. Real value is quiet. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't fear silence. It doesn't seek validation. It stands firm in itself, unshaken by trends, untouched by noise. But in a world that trades authenticity for image, quiet confidence is often missed because it doesn't advertise itself, it doesn't sell, it simply is. This illusion goes deeper. It turns relationships into transactions, time into productivity, passion into performance. Even self-expression becomes filtered, curated, monetized. The real is slowly replaced by the appealing, and in that exchange, something sacred is lost. You begin to live outward. You begin to think in terms of optics. How will it look? How will it post? How will it rank? And without noticing, your life becomes a stage. Not for art, but for approval. But no amount of followers can fill the absence of real connection. No amount of luxury can substitute the texture of presence. No display can replace the intimacy of being truly seen. You may look like you're winning, but inside, the hunger grows. Because symbols can only distract. They can't nourish. They're sugar for the soul. Quick, bright, empty. To break the illusion, you have to stop believing the lie that more means better, that bigger means stronger, that visible means valuable. The truth lives elsewhere, in the unseen, in the unmeasurable, in the silent place within that knows who you are even when everything is stripped away. It takes courage to step back, to question what you've been taught to admire, to feel discomfort without rushing to cover it, to be present without needing to prove anything. But this is where real value lives, not in the marketplace, not in the algorithm, not in the curated identity, but in the raw, naked truth of your being, in the breath that doesn't ask to be worthy, in the silence that doesn't need decoration. And once you touch that place, you begin to see the illusion for what it is: a game, a play, a costume party with high stakes and low depth. And when you see it, you can step out, not with anger, not with pride, but with clarity. Because what is truly valuable was never for sale. Success is one of the most powerful myths of the modern world. It's praised, worshipped, displayed. It promises arrival, completion, worth. It tells you that when you get there, you'll finally be enough, finally rest, finally breathe. But success doesn't free you. It shifts the pressure. It multiplies the expectations. It increases the visibility. Suddenly, you're not just trying to win, you're trying not to fall. And the higher you climb, the harder it is to be real. People think success feels like flight. Often it feels like weight. The weight of appearances. The weight of being watched. The weight of sustaining the image you worked so hard to build. You smile wider, but sleep lighter. You celebrate louder, but feel emptier. This is not weakness. This is the hidden cost. The part no one talks about. Because in the myth of success, there's no space for fatigue, for doubt, for silence. You're expected to keep moving, keep growing, keep proving. But something inside begins to ask, to whom? When you live for the outside, the inside begins to fade. Not because you want to lose yourself, but because the world rewards the mask, the performance, the consistency. But your soul was never designed for performance. It's not consistent. It's not predictable. It's wild, deep, cyclical. Success demands shape, but your truth resists shape. It wants space, breath, expansion. And when those two forces meet, something breaks, usually quietly, internally. The audience keeps clapping, the light stays on, but behind the curtain, the person begins to disappear. This disappearance is slow, subtle. You notice it in moments. When the joy doesn't land, when the wind feels flat, when the laughter doesn't reach your chest. You keep going, hoping the next level will bring it back. But it doesn't. Because success achieved from emptiness cannot fill the emptiness. It can only decorate it. There's a deeper layer to this. When your worth is tied to your achievements, rest feels dangerous. Slowing down feels like failure. You become addicted to motion, to tasks, to goals, even when you're exhausted. Especially when you're exhausted. You forget how to be still, how to be without becoming. You forget how to just exist. But you were not born to perform. You were born to be. And no amount of external validation can replace the internal sense of being enough. This isn't an attack on ambition. Ambition can be sacred. Creation is natural. Building is human. But when it comes from fear, from lack, it turns into addiction. The need to do more, be more, prove more. And it never ends. Because fear cannot be fed into silence. It only grows. You begin to carry the weight of your own image. You feel trapped inside a life that once felt like a dream. You wonder why the light feels heavy, why the applause feels cold, why the mirror shows a face you don't fully recognize. And then, maybe, a moment of stillness, a break in the noise, a breath that reaches deeper, and you feel it, the question rising. What if I stopped? Not forever, not as a collapse, but as a return to something softer, slower, truer, something that doesn't need to be seen to be real. What if success was never meant to be the goal, but the byproduct of being fully alive? What if freedom was not at the top, but at the core? These questions won't make sense in a world obsessed with measurement, but they make sense to your soul, to the part of you that remembers silence, that craves truth, that's tired of pretending. Success is not evil, but the story around it is incomplete. It's loud, bright, fast, but often hollow. And you don't need to reject it. You just need to redefine it, to make it yours, to let it come from depth, not desperation, from fullness, not hunger, from love, not fear. Only then does success become light, not a crown to carry, but a fire to share. Comparison is the background noise of a world built on visibility. It hums beneath every scroll, every post, every glance. Not loud enough to shock, but constant enough to shape how you see yourself, not through your own eyes, but through someone else's lens. You're not just living, you're measuring, not just creating, you're competing. Every move you make is shadowed by the thought, how does it compare? Who's doing better? Who's ahead? Who's more? And the trap tightens. You don't just want something, you want more than someone else, not because you need it, but because you fear being less seen, less admired, less respected, as if your value can be stolen by someone else's success. This is the virus of modern living, a quiet war of images, a race with no finish line, because there will always be someone richer, smarter, younger, louder, and the moment you attach your worth to where you stand among others, you lose yourself. Comparison steals presence. It poisons joy. It turns milestones into measurements. Instead of celebrating, you calculate. Instead of enjoying, you evaluate. The moment becomes a scoreboard, not an experience. And the irony is, what you compare yourself to is not even real. You're seeing fragments, highlights, masks, a person's most polished moment, presented through a filter, selected for impact. And yet you compare it to your whole self, including the pain, the doubt, the chaos. You're fighting a battle against illusions, and even when you win, it feels empty. The deeper problem is this. Comparison creates constant restlessness. You never arrive. You never settle. Because the bar keeps moving. The standard keeps changing. The moment you match it, it evolves. Faster, flashier, louder. This leads to a kind of internal noise, a buzzing dissatisfaction, not loud enough to stop you, but strong enough to keep you chasing. It whispers that you're falling behind, that you're missing out, that you need to catch up. But it never defines where up actually is. And so you run, not towards something, but away from the fear of being less, away from silence, away from stillness. But what if being less isn't the danger? What if the real danger is forgetting who you are without the mirror of others? You were not made to be a copy, not made to fit into charts and rankings. Your value was never meant to be compared. It was meant to be expressed. But the system doesn't want expression. It wants performance, predictability, trends, something to categorize, to monetize, to count. Comparison turns you into a number, and once you become a number, you're replaceable. Freedom begins the moment you stop playing that game, not by pretending you don't care, but by realizing the cost of caring too much. Because every time you measure yourself by someone else's life, you abandon your own. You stop listening. You stop feeling. You stop following the strange wild rhythm inside you that doesn't care about optics, that doesn't move in straight lines, that doesn't want what others want. This inner rhythm, that's where your life is, your real life. The one not made for the feed but for the soul. The one that can't be ranked because it's not in competition with anything. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not lacking. You are simply lost in noise. And when you turn down the volume, when you step away from the mirror and into your breath, you find something terrifying and beautiful. There was never anything to prove. One of the most seductive illusions money offers is control. The feeling that you can shape the world, protect yourself from chaos, bend reality to your will. That if you earn enough, own enough, know enough, nothing can touch you. It begins innocently. You seek comfort. You want to feel safe. And money gives you that, for a while. It creates distance from certain fears, but slowly comfort turns into dependency, and dependency into obsession. You start to believe that control is freedom, that if you just plan enough, buy enough, insure enough, you'll finally be untouchable. But this belief has a cost, a silent one, because control is not freedom, it's resistance, and what you resist begins to own you. When you cling too tightly, life becomes smaller, less spontaneous, less alive. Every unknown becomes a threat, every surprise a danger. You start protecting yourself, not just from harm, but from feeling, from change, from growth. This kind of control demands energy, constant vigilance. You're always calculating, always preparing, always managing. But peace doesn't live in management. It lives in surrender. The more you try to control life, the more afraid you become. Because deep down, you know, nothing is ever truly under control. Not people, not outcomes, not even your own mind. And the fear of losing control becomes bigger than any external threat. That fear drives much of modern ambition. People chase success not for joy, but for safety. Not to expand, but to shield. Not to live, but to avoid collapse. But no amount of money can prevent life from being life. It's unpredictable, messy, wild, beautiful, and sometimes painful. Real strength isn't found in control. It's found in flexibility, in the ability to adapt, to respond, to trust. Not blindly, but wisely. To know that even if things fall apart, you won't. But the system doesn't teach this. It teaches you to build walls, to stack layers, to outsource your inner peace to external structure. And once you believe that your power comes from your grip, you'll never stop tightening your fist. This creates a constant tension, a deep inner stiffness. You may look composed, even successful, but inside, you're bracing, preparing for what might go wrong. And in that bracing, you miss what's actually happening. You miss life, not the big moments, the small ones, the laugh that wasn't planned, the idea that came from nowhere, the connection that didn't fit your schedule. These are the things that bring meaning, and they can't be controlled, only received. Letting go of control doesn't mean collapse. It means presence. It means meeting life as it is, not as you wish it to be. It means trusting yourself, not your systems. Trusting your depth, not your defense. You begin to see that true safety doesn't come from your bank account. It comes from your capacity to feel, to face, to respond. From your relationship with uncertainty. From knowing that even if things fall, you will still stand. Control is heavy. It requires constant feeding. It whispers that if you stop, everything will fall apart. But that's the lie. What truly falls apart when you let go is the illusion. And behind that illusion is something lighter, freer, more human. Not perfection, not power, but presence. There comes a moment, not marked by noise, not framed by applause, when something in you stops running, not because you've reached the finish line, but because you realize there never was one. The chase slows, the craving softens, and in the stillness, you feel something unfamiliar, yourself. Not the version built for display, not the identity crafted through effort, but the being underneath it all, the part that was always there, waiting for you to return. You start to see clearly. All the layers you built weren't you. The ambition wasn't wrong, but it was never the source. The possessions weren't bad, but they were never the point. The recognition felt good, but it was never love. None of it was wrong. It was just incomplete. You begin to remember a different kind of wealth, the kind that doesn't fluctuate, the kind that doesn't need numbers, contracts, or cameras. A wealth measured in presence, in clarity, in peace, in the ability to sit in silence without fear. This is the return to wholeness, not through achievement, but through release. Letting go of the noise, the masks, the constant need to improve, compete, or explain. Letting go not because you failed, but because you're done playing a game that never had your name on it. The material world loses its grip, not because it disappears, but because it no longer defines you. You can still move in it, create in it, enjoy it, but you are no longer owned by it. The chain breaks, and in its place, space opens up. Not empty space, sacred space. Now you can breathe without permission. Now you can speak without a script. Now you can stand in your life, exactly as it is, and say, this is enough. Wholeness is not perfection. It's integrity, alignment. The inner knowing that nothing is missing, that nothing needs to be added to make you real. You're already real. This doesn't mean you abandon ambition. It means you free it. You allow your desire to come from depth, not lack. From love, not fear. From joy, not desperation. Creation becomes play again. Movement becomes expression, not escape. And relationships change. Because now, you don't seek to impress or prove. You seek to connect. You show up with your truth, your softness, your fire, and you let others do the same. Real connection begins, not curated, not transactional, but honest, messy, human. You begin to see beauty in simplicity, in the morning light, in bare feet on the floor, in unfiltered laughter, in long pauses that don't need to be filled. These things were always there. You just couldn't see them through the lens of more. Wholeness isn't loud. It's quiet confidence. It's not afraid of loss because it knows nothing essential can be taken. It doesn't cling to success because it knows you are not your outcome. It doesn't need to dominate because it knows real power doesn't push, it radiates. You stop living on the surface of things. You go deeper, into your breath, into your sensations, into the moment. And in that depth, you meet yourself again. Not the idea of you, not the projection, but the being. And you feel it. The thing you were chasing all along was never out there. Not in the money, not in the house, not in the car, not in the brand, not in the admiration, not in the next thing. It was always here, beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the hunger. It was always you. And when you feel that, really feel it, something breaks. But it's not you, it's the illusion. And what's left is something softer, stronger, truer. Not freedom you bought, but freedom you remembered. Not peace you earned, but peace you uncovered. Not love you chased, but love you are. So now, when the world whispers again that you need more, that you are not enough, that you must prove, perform, acquire, you can smile gently and say, "No, I am already whole." At some point, the hunger fades, not because you've had enough, but because you've finally seen what it really is. An echo, a distraction, a loop with no end. You stop chasing not out of defeat, but out of clarity. The world told you that freedom lives in what you can hold, buy, prove. But now you feel it. Freedom begins when nothing owns you. Not things, not people, not even your own ambition. You step back, you breathe, you stop looking at life through the lens of what's next. And slowly, something returns. Something ancient, silent, strong. You begin to feel whole again. Not because everything is perfect, but because nothing is missing. There's nothing left to hide, nothing left to achieve, to feel enough. Just this, the moment, the breath, the being. You can still move, build, dream, but now from peace, not pressure, from joy, not fear, from truth, not image. You remember who you were before the noise, before the world told you to run. And in that remembering, you are free. You stop chasing. Not because you've reached the top, but because you finally see there's nothing there. Just another layer, another image, another version of the same hunger. And underneath it all, silence. Not emptiness, but stillness, space, breath. You realize you were never broken, just distracted, pulled outward again and again, until you forgot how to feel your own center. Now you return to simplicity, to presence, to the quiet power of being. You no longer need to impress, no longer need to prove. You can just be. And in that being, you are whole. No symbol can offer this. No status can replace it. No amount of money can buy it. This is the freedom that comes when you stop needing more. And remember, you are always enough. We're sure you've discovered plenty of value, so subscribe now and stay connected.